The world stands on a knife's edge tonight. Tensions are reaching a boiling point as new intelligence reveals that Russia's hypersonic missile systems are now capable of striking NATO bases within minutes. The question everyone is asking, is this the beginning of a new global conflict, or can diplomacy still pull the world back from the brink of war? In recent weeks, international security analysts have been sounding the alarm over what could be one of the most destabilizing developments since the Cold War. Russia has reportedly positioned its newest hypersonic missile systems, the Kinzhal, Zircon, and Avangard, near its western borders, giving Moscow the ability to target key NATO installations across Europe in under 10 minutes. These missiles, capable of traveling at speeds exceeding Mach 10, are not just fast. They are nearly impossible to intercept with existing defense systems. The revelation has sent shockwaves through military and political circles across Washington, Brussels, and London. According to defense officials, the concern isn't merely the existence of these weapons, it's their deployment pattern. Satellite imagery indicates that several launch platforms have been relocated closer to the borders of Poland, Romania, and the Baltic states. These countries host some of NATO's most vital forward operating bases, command centers, and logistics hubs. In the event of a conflict, these would be the first targets to fall under Russia's strike capability. Sources within NATO have confirmed that the alliance is conducting urgent consultations behind closed doors, reviewing response plans, and even considering activating higher alert levels for its missile defense networks. One senior defense analyst put it bluntly, "This isn't just about deterrence anymore. The speed and unpredictability of hypersonic weapons change the entire game. We're entering an era where reaction time is measured in seconds, not minutes, and that makes accidental war far more likely." The escalating situation comes at a time when relations between Russia and NATO have already reached historic lows. Since the invasion of Ukraine, the alliance has expanded its military presence along the Eastern Front, increasing troop numbers, conducting frequent air patrols, and deploying advanced systems like the Patriot and Aegis defense platforms. In response, Moscow has accused NATO of encircling Russia and threatening its national security. Now, with the deployment of hypersonic missiles, it appears that Russia is sending a very deliberate message. It is ready to defend its interests, or strike first if provoked. Russian state media has openly showcased footage of test launches, boasting about the speed and precision of its weapon systems. President Vladimir Putin has described these missiles as unstoppable and a key pillar of Russia's defense strategy. During a recent address, Putin stated, "No foreign power should assume it can act against Russia without facing immediate and decisive consequences." That statement has been widely interpreted by Western intelligence agencies as a direct warning to NATO nations supporting Ukraine with military aid. Experts note that hypersonic weapons fundamentally change strategic calculations. Traditional missile defense systems like THAAD or Patriot were designed to intercept slower, predictable ballistic missiles. Hypersonic missiles, on the other hand, fly at lower altitudes, maneuver unpredictably, and travel more than 10 times the speed of sound. This means even the most advanced tracking systems have minimal time to respond, making defense almost impossible once a missile is launched. In military terms, this represents a shift from deterrence to dominance. If one side believes it can deliver a swift, unanswerable strike, the threshold for conflict becomes dangerously low. The psychological impact alone is enormous. NATO commanders now face the grim reality that their bases, airfields, and command centers could be destroyed before they even issue a counterorder. Meanwhile, the political fallout is escalating just as quickly. In Washington, U.S. officials have condemned Moscow's actions, calling them a reckless provocation. The Pentagon has confirmed that it is monitoring the situation closely and that U.S. forces in Europe are prepared for all contingencies. There are reports that the United States is accelerating its own hypersonic weapons program to close the growing capability gap with Russia and China. However, American military analysts admit that it could take years before these systems reach full operational readiness. European leaders are expressing alarm as well. Germany's defense minister said in a press briefing that Europe is entering the most dangerous security environment since World War II. France's president has called for an emergency meeting of NATO's Security Council, urging calm but acknowledging that Europe must now prepare for all scenarios. The United Kingdom has quietly increased its intelligence flights over Eastern Europe, with Royal Air Force surveillance aircraft operating daily near Russian airspace. The most concerning development is the growing fear of miscalculation. In recent weeks, several near-miss incidents between Russian and NATO aircraft have been reported over the Baltic Sea. Any misstep, a radar lock-on, a misinterpreted maneuver, or a false alarm could ignite a chain reaction neither side can control. Military experts warn that with the introduction of hypersonic weapons, the decision window, the time leaders have to verify and respond to a potential attack, has effectively vanished. At the heart of the tension lies Ukraine, where the ongoing war continues to drain resources and fuel hostility on both sides. Western nations continue to provide Kyiv with advanced weapons, intelligence, and financial aid, while Moscow frames this as direct interference. Some analysts believe Russia's hypersonic deployment is not just about deterring NATO, but also about pressuring the West to scale back its involvement in Ukraine. Others suggest it's a strategic signal, a reminder that Russia still holds significant leverage even as the war drags on. Beyond the military and political implications, the global economic impact could be catastrophic if tensions escalate further. Oil prices have already surged following the reports, with markets fearing potential disruptions in energy supply routes across Eastern Europe. The global stock market reacted sharply as well, with defense stocks soaring while broader indexes tumbled. Investors are increasingly bracing for a long period of uncertainty, reminiscent of the financial volatility seen during the early days of the Ukraine invasion. In China, officials have refrained from directly commenting on the latest developments but have reiterated their call for restraint and dialogue. However, Chinese state-run outlets have subtly framed the crisis as a reflection of Western provocation and hypocrisy. Beijing's growing alignment with Moscow adds another layer of complexity. Many fear that any NATO-Russia confrontation could draw in other major powers, turning a regional crisis into a global showdown. Meanwhile, in the United States, the political divide is deepening. Some lawmakers are calling for stronger action against Russia, including more sanctions and increased military aid to NATO allies. Others warn that such steps could push Moscow even closer to the edge, raising the risk of a direct confrontation that no one can win. A senior U.S. senator described the situation as a slow-motion march toward World War III, urging immediate diplomatic engagement before it's too late. Inside Russia, the government-controlled media has been portraying the West as the aggressor, accusing NATO of plotting to undermine Russian sovereignty. The narrative is designed to rally domestic support and frame any potential escalation as an act of defense. Public opinion within Russia appears to have hardened, with many citizens now viewing NATO as a direct threat to their nation's survival. Despite the rising tensions, some diplomatic channels remain open. Reports suggest that behind the scenes, envoys from Turkey, Switzerland, and China are attempting to mediate quiet discussions between Russian and NATO officials. However, insiders admit that trust is at an all-time low. Both sides suspect the other of preparing for escalation rather than negotiation. The United Nations has also stepped in, warning that a single miscalculation could lead to unimaginable consequences. Secretary General Antonio Guterres called on both Russia and NATO to exercise maximum restraint and re-establish communication channels to prevent accidental conflict. "The world cannot afford another war," he said in a somber address to the Security Council. Still, as history has shown, wars often begin not with grand plans but with small mistakes, misjudgments, and rising fear. The Cold War was filled with close calls, from the Cuban Missile Crisis to radar false alarms, yet humanity managed to step back from the brink. Whether the same restraint can prevail in an age of hypersonic missiles remains to be seen. Experts agree that the greatest danger lies not in deliberate aggression, but in the speed of modern warfare itself. The faster weapons become, the less time humans have to think, and the more power shifts to automated systems, algorithms, and early warning computers. One malfunction, one false signal, could unleash destruction before leaders even realize what's happening. The situation has also raised new debates about nuclear deterrence. Hypersonic weapons blur the line between conventional and nuclear warfare. A missile launched from Russian territory might be carrying a conventional warhead, or a nuclear one. With only minutes to decide, NATO commanders could assume the worst, triggering a catastrophic retaliation. This ambiguity makes the world far more unstable than during the Cold War, when warning systems and slower missiles provided more time for decision-making. Meanwhile, in the streets of Europe and America, people are growing anxious. Protests have erupted in major cities calling for de-escalation and peace talks. Social media is flooded with fears of a World War III scenario as hashtags like "on the edge of war" and "stop the missiles" trend globally. The public, weary from years of economic turmoil and regional conflicts, is desperate for stability. Yet the rhetoric from world leaders continues to harden. In Moscow, President Putin maintains that Russia's actions are purely defensive. In Washington, NATO insists that the alliance will defend every inch of its territory. Both sides claim they don't want war, yet both continue to prepare for it. That contradiction lies at the core of today's crisis. As night falls over Europe, radar stations and missile defense systems hum quietly, scanning the skies for any sign of launch. Pilots remain on standby, submarines patrol beneath the waves, and governments hold emergency meetings that may determine the course of global peace or catastrophe. For now, the missiles remain silent, but experts warn that all it would take is one order, one misstep, one misinterpreted move, and the world could find itself facing a nightmare it thought it had left behind decades ago. In this high-stakes standoff, one question echoes louder than all others. Will reason prevail before the unthinkable happens? Or are we already standing at the edge, watching history prepare to repeat itself in the most devastating way imaginable? Because if these new hypersonic weapons are ever used in combat, it won't just be another war. It could be the last one humanity ever fights.